Hello, everybody, and welcome to TFT, Tinfoil Talk. Of course, today we're going to be talking about the conspiracy that is politics. We're very happy to have all you guys in here with us. Well, as you always, we want to remind you to check out all our links we got down below and things we got going on there. But the first thing we want to do today is a little bit sad, but of course, I think most of us know about what's going on with that Star Wars girl, Anna, and her sister Ellen was missing. Well, it seems that I don't have any particular details, but it seems like she's been found and she has passed away. This is, of course, incredibly sad news. That's Star Wars girl is certainly part of our community, and of course, it's sad anytime we hear anything like that. Anyway, but yeah, it's a really unfortunate thing. So, if you guys don't mind, we're going to start the show off here with a moment of silence, please. Yeah, and not to depress things too much here today, but we just want to show a little bit of respect to that, and it's really unfortunate. I don't have any detail in it. I'm not directly connected. I don't think any of us here at FanSpeak are directly connected, but she's certainly part of our community, and it's a really sad news, man, and it's one of those things I don't think I really want to know what happened actually. Just the fact that she has passed away, and it was on her birthday too, or whatever the situation was. But it is the world we live in, right? There are some bad people or bad things happen. For all we know, it could have been an accident. I guess I just don't know the details, but I do know that it's sad, and we certainly want to give our sympathies and our condolences to Anna and her family, of course. A very young lady to pass away like that. So, yeah, of course, I'm sure you guys all know about it. You might even know more than I do. You guys know that I don't really pay too much attention to Twitter. I do see the timeline as it goes by sometimes, and I keep abreast of it a little bit, but I try not to interact with it, and that seems to be where most of the conversation is. So if you do want more information, I suggest you go out and check the Twitter. I know I say don't go to Twitter, but that seems to be where it is. But anyway, welcome to the show, guys. We are talking about something sensitive today, maybe possibly spicy. So definitely, help us out by hitting that share button and letting everybody know what we're doing here. This is a live stream, of course, and YouTube doesn't put notifications out for little channels, especially ones that aren't monetized. There is no reason for them to help us at all, obviously. But this kind of brings us into a little bit of the beginning of our conversation, doesn't it? Because we're talking about politics and the conspiracy theory that it is. And I think if you can, in general, understand what I mean by this, when we talk about YouTube. Right,
Mhm.
they are protecting themselves underneath a platform set of rules that we have in the West that protect things like AT&T and T and all those kind of or whatever your local phone company or whatever. And it's good we have those protection for them. Let them offer that service that we need, and let the rest of the nonsense come back to the individual. But they're hiding behind this. Calling themselves a platform, getting the protection of it, but yet they're working and acting like a publisher, deciding who gets to speak, who has a voice, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these guys are not only banning the normal person from their wrong think, they're also going after senators and congressmen and even presidents. How dare I say? But they are. And of course, this in itself is a conspiracy. Now, I don't really think we need to put the word theory on it because it just is. But it's a perfect example. If this is supposed to be a platform, then even though with this, we over here with this small channel, we should get the same type of interactive and access to the technology that everybody else does, right? But yet we don't. So it's like, pick a lane is what it comes down to. But we do know that there are politicians all over the world that are going at these SNS, type of groups and trying to get them on the straight and narrow. So we'll see how that works. Oh, platform versus publisher. Screw them, says what is this Star Storyteller? Yeah, no, of course. And this is just an initial interaction to the idea we have today. This is a lot deeper than that, isn't it? But nevertheless, let me come over here and say hello to my panel. George, how you doing, dude?
Greetings, greetings, Chester. Greetings, Dinale. Greetings, everyone. I'm doing okay.
Awesome. That's good to hear, dude. And how about you, Denali? How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Nice weather today, not raining, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be shut in the house because of the weather. So I'm happy of that. But it's still humid as heck, so I am
Yeah.
sweating like crazy.
Yeah, it's humid for me as well, but it's been an interesting year as far as weather goes. Our rainy season, of course, is on us now, but it's about a month late. Actually. So it's a it's actually been a very dry year, and of course, in the end, that means it's going to be a cool summer in relatively right, cool summer.
Hmm.
But it just depends. This is another kind of conspiracy, political conspiracy thing that would come up in today's conversation, if you so choose. That whole global warming thing. I mean, we know that certain parts of the world do have warmer years than others. It goes through cycles, and sometimes there's weird little jump ups, right? They talk about the glaciers in Greenland are melting. Yeah, well, the ice over in Alaska is getting thicker, and especially in the Antarctic, that thing's growing at an alarming rate. The ice and the cold down in Antarctica is getting a bit touch and go. What's going to go on with that, right? Because we don't want that kind of ice development down there. It could cause some of the issues that have been speculated historically to come out of Antarctica with major tsunamis and other things like that. Um, so that's another political conspiracy, right?
Right.
Because it's not it's certainly regionally we can see some kind of warming or cooling, but it's certainly not global, right? Which is interesting. Europe is getting hit with a heat wave right now, but Asia's not, right? We're actually having a relatively cool summer here this year.
I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the last couple earthquakes we done because it has shift the wobbling on the earth just slightly, so that could be attributed to some of the changes that's been occurring.
That's a fair point. The Tohoku earthquake, which hit Japan a few years back, it did move us a little on the axis, as it did the ones down on the west coast of South America. Those have caused
Hmm.
actual movement. It's true. It's a fair point. And of course, the other thing to keep in mind that we are going through, we're in slap dab in the middle of a magnetic pole shift. Actually, in your lifetime, those listening, more than likely in your lifetime, you're going to see the North and the South Pole change. Now, that doesn't mean the planet's flipping upside down. That's not what's happening. Although this we have had actual physical pole shifts in the past. True,
The
but
flat
what's
Earth
happening?
says that's what's happening.
Well, no, that's not what's
Yeah,
happening. It's a magnetic
yeah,
shift, and it happens all the
yeah.
time. This is not an odd thing at all, guys. They've
Hmm.
monitored this happening thousands upon thousands of times. It's not a weird thing. Now, some of the birds and some, fish or particularly sea mammals might have a little bit of issue, and there could be some shifts with them. But it's something that happens. But that right there could also be having an effect on the magnetic aspect or the magneto aspect of the planet. And of course, we know it's all electrical. But once again, this is another type of political conspiracy. Nick W says, Chester, you climate change denier. Climate change is real. Of course it is. The climate's always changing, dude. I mean, come on. We're actually right in the very onset of a solar minimum right now, dude. It's
Right.
actually going to get colder in most places over the next 80 to 100 years, dude. This is all cyclical. This nonsense with save the polar bears, even though there's more polar bears now than there ever have been as far as our counting, is complete nonsense. It's all about taxes, dude. I mean, think about your life. They tax you for your water. They tax you for your land. They tax you for your job. They tax you for everything you buy. Everything in your life is taxed. Everything. The only thing that wasn't taxed was the air that you breathe. Well, it's taxed now, baby. Well, unless you live in America, because Trump said, nope, go away. But pretty much every place else is now taxing you. They call it a carbon tax, and it's all about the global warming. And it's basically just a way for them to tax you for breathing, right? Because global warming is complete nonsense. Is there warming in certain areas? Sure, we've been warming for the past 15,000 years, seemingly. But you know,
Yeah,
it's not
I mean
that.
the Earth
It's
doesn't stay the same.
no.
We're actually due to change. We've been late in changing,
That's right.
actually.
And we have been. Actually, the weather we've lived under most of human civilization, or at least what we know of human civilization, has been actually very cool. I mean, technically, when you look at the temperatures that are suggested through our history, we're still in an ice age. We're in the the later ages, the last stages of an ice age right now. We're not in the normal temperatures. Usually much harder than this, dude, right? And it
Right.
could, and that
Like
also might well have a good explanation on why we know one of the biggest trading civilizations we had on this planet was in the Arctic Circle, right? All
right.
those northern Russia, northern Canada, all that stuff, Britain, Norway, Scandinavia, all that stuff was
Mhm.
trading across those waters. It's hard for people to imagine that because when they look at the Arctic, they think of it as the top of the planet. And we look at that map, we're always looking at the face of the continents. Now, if you're in the West, the center is on the Atlantic Ocean. If you're in the East here, it's in the center's on the Pacific. But we always think that way. But if you look at a polar map, and you can imagine that the boats and ships are trading all around that area, that is one of the biggest civilizations we've had, and it's a lot of very interesting research is coming out of there. And then, especially if you take into account that it seems that whatever this cataclysm we had was, 12,000 years ago, which everyone agrees happened now, they just don't know how, that seemingly in that shift, that we had an actual polar shift. Because originally, the pole at that time was sitting over like Montana, and now, of course, it's not. So if you shift even that aspect, you see this wonderful kind of sitting around the Mediterranean type of area of where the North Pole is now. So I mean that's a whole nother idea. But then when we come into this climate change, which wasn't my plan, but it all applies, right?
Right.
When we come to this thing, they talk about carbon dioxide, right? Well, if you actually go look at the actual studies that are testing and the levels of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, they're not high. They're actually dangerously low. They're really worried about how low the numbers are, not high. It's complete nonsense. There is no climate change denier. This is just more political conspiracy. And that's what we're talking about today. But before I go deeper into that, because you can, let's come over to George. And George, what do you want to add to this conversation, dude, before we get into it? Because I know I got a couple points I want to make, but this is such a broad conversation, dude. We could talk about all day about this.
It is. And on these points, I like to add that what I take away from this is not the fact that real science, hardcore science, denies or doesn't care about the lies that they spew.
That's true.
But the part that really makes me sad is people who knowingly lie or deceive or just through sheer ignorance perpetrate the lies. Examples that science guy, Bill the science guy,
Bill Nye.
he,
Yeah,
he,
go
had,
ahead, dude.
he had he had a wonderful reputation up until the point where he started to support Monsanto and talk about gender, more than two genders, and so forth.
Mhm.
That guy,
What a combination though, George. Not only is he a crazy SJW identity politics guy, but you're right, the Monsanto thing. It's like you would assume those things wouldn't go together, right? Because Monsanto is a giant agricultural or agrarian monster company that sues people, destroys lives. I mean, they're evil. When we talk about evil corporations, Monsanto is the freaking poster child. But yet he's going to support that while at the same time yelling at us for our gender. I mean, come on, Bill
yeah,
Nye.
it's him and people like him who lie because what they're doing is there's only one reason why these scientists or quote unquote scientists I call just fake or cop outs, whatever you want to call them.
Hmm.
They're just liars, in my opinion. And the only reason they're doing this is because of a paycheck. If they were doing it out of the goodness of their heart to progress the human intelligence, I don't think they would be lying to the public. But
Which
they
is
are lying.
why I chose this topic today, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're lying as much as that vice president of 19 years ago. What's his name? Gore.
Oh, Al Gore, yeah.
Al Gore. Yeah.
Oh, we have lived through his lies, and we called his lies what they are, lies. And what he does is he pivots and changes the narrative. I go, well, no, you just spent the last 10 years telling us that by 2012 or whatever, by a 10-year timeline or some such like that, we will be flooded. Most of the coastal cities will be underwater.
And of course,
That
now
hasn't
the
happened.
coastal waterline or ocean levels are actually lower.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we have lived through his length of time to call out his BS. And
Mm.
now we got Alexander Cortez saying, "Well, you got 12 years before the Earth ends," and now she's walking it back because she or the people who are pulling her strings told her, "Okay, you know what? You just took it a little too far. That's too obvious of a lie."
Well, now this Cortez lady who got elected in a very small little area in New York of absolutely rich, crazy, artistic type people that put her in. I don't even want to bother pronouncing her name. Just Cortez is good enough for me. She, and I say this with all due respect, is a silly twit. Yeah.
You're disrespecting the twits out there, man.
And she's really bad. I mean, a lot of politicians aren't, our politicians aren't necessarily the sharpest knives in the drawer. They tend not to be that smart. You get a few ones, a few that are, but she's quite a desperate level of stupid, though. I mean, you're making one comment off of her saying where the planet's going to be dead in 12 years, which of course is ridiculous. But she says dumb things constantly. And we saw, of course, this a bunch of photos came out the other day where she was doing a staged cry-in down on the down on the border, supposedly trying to deal with the concentration camps that Obama set up, I guess. But of course, I guess it's all Trump's fault now. But yeah, it's just another example. Eric says, "Hey now, if it wasn't for Al Gore, we wouldn't have the internet today. How would we enjoy this show without Al Gore?" Yeah, of course, he claimed that he created the internet, which we all know is absolute BS.
Yep.
She could just be a distraction. Yeah, I think she probably is, dude. Uh, excuse me.
Just for the people out there while Chester is composing himself, the
Yeah.
internet was created by DARPA back in the 50s.
Hmm.
It was written in public documents. You can look it up. I don't have the exact link or anything like that, but the technology of DARPA is 60 years ahead of what is publicly shown,
Sure.
and so was the social system, the social internet system that we are all communicating with each other. Again, that was designed and created in concept back then, and then the
Hmm.
universities just started to build on that, slowly communicating university to university, and then the telecom companies came in and added their infrastructure on top of that existing structure, and then
Sure.
we have what we have is the internet today. There you go, a short brief history. Al Gore wasn't even born around that particular time.
No, no, he's full of it, just like most politicians are. And of course, the internet was originally created for the military to communicate quickly worldwide. That's the inception is a military communication device.
Application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's absolutely true. We all know that, though. We're all aware of how full of it Al Gore is. But they all are. I mean, it doesn't matter what politician, right or left, doesn't matter, right? They're all, but we are looking at some pretty craziness going on in the left side of things, and this isn't isolated to America. This is all over. We're seeing what of course, Chancellor Merkel did over in Germany, absolutely screwed Europe. Look at the the ridiculous problems they're having, and although a lot of those countries have done everything they can to shut up and black out the press and arrest people for daring to say anything negative about how having our wonderful new guests. But now it's got to the point where we're starting to get a lot of evidence and a lot of the actual data is coming out of the police departments and stuff over in Europe, and we're seeing it's much worse than we thought. It's become your EU has become the rape capital of the world, with lots of crime, violence, stabbings, and even death. This is what Merkel brought on because she's got to save the world, because she has to save the brown peoples because of her internalized guilt. And it's really funny to me that Germany, which is so desperate not to become fascist again, so desperate, have made themselves fascist again. Ironic, isn't it?
It's interesting that to forget or ignore history
Hmm.
is to repeat history. And again, it's really incredible that we're actually living through another moment in human history where an entire group of people, an entire country, is disregarding history and allowing it to happen all over again.
Oh, sure, but this is not strange. We've had many philosophers throughout history talk about the condition that it is to be human, stating the fact that we seemingly are beyond the ability to actually exist in peace. We must be in the middle of controversy. It is simply what we are. A matter of fact, a really good, a person, a really good writer who represented this, I think, in a beautiful way was the Herbert there, the guy who wrote Dune. His whole idea is based upon this concept that mankind cannot exist outside of violence. It's something that we are just born to. We can't live in peace. If we're in peace or even forced into peace, we tear ourselves apart. So it's we must exist within this violent state, which is a sad thing, but historically it seems to be true. I do notice that John said this show needs Dillard percent more drama. Well, John, you do have access to the link, dude. It's right in the
Yes,
Discord. You're a member of the
yes,
Discord.
yes, yes. Let's strap on John and bring him into the conversation.
Yeah, well, John actually would be good for this conversation, I think, dude.
Well, I'll extrapolate a little further from what you just said about history, and and then bring it into just a slight shift.
Hmm.
Man is the only animal on the planet that actually fights against his environment. Interesting, wouldn't you say that all the other beasts on the planet, or beings on the planet, animals, insects, whatever you want to call it, they all live and exist in in some form or another with the planet. Man is the only animal on the planet who continues to fight against the planet
Sure.
and destroy the planet. And you would wonder, would this be something that would be injected to the planet or be something that actually was created on the planet?
Well, now that conversation is leading down a road to next week's conversation, George. So we're going to save that if you don't mind, because next week I'm going to do my best to have Ben Henderson on here, and we're going to be talking about the Anunnaki, the ancient aliens, which he seems like he's going to have a fun conversation with us on that. And of course, we're well versed in that kind of conversation as well. So let's save that for next week if you don't mind. But
No, I don't mind at all. That's,
yeah.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, now, and of course, there's this open-ended one I have today can go anywhere, which is good. I could just be a distraction. The Howl comic says, "Yeah, if any of you guys want to come in here and give your opinion, please let us know. Just put it in the chat, and we'll get you a link, dude. No problem. I'll put Dinale on that because I'm going over to the other side right now. But keep an eye on that,
Mm.
Dinale. If anybody wants in, just
No, I will gatekeep and
okay.
keep them out.
He's going to gatekeep. All right, fine. But I wanted to. One of the things I wanted to focus on a little bit today was Trump. And
Hmm.
because Trump is certainly a controversial figure, I don't disagree with this in any way. And of course, I think he loves being controversial. He loves the limelight. This is something we can all agree upon. But I wanted to make a couple of points because we're all seeing it. We all talk about it. We see how since he's been elected, it's affected everything that we love. Right, board games, video games, of course, that was going on before. Comic books, incredibly so. I mean, no matter what you think of the situation, if you take, like, say, Ethan Van Sciver or Mitch Breitweiser or Mike Miller or even R.T. Bear, and you look at what happened to them the night that Trump was elected, Ethan came out and was happy because he voted for Trump. Right, and he just can't, he got an absolute avalanche of hate toward him. Mitch Breitweiser simply put out a little thing saying, "I hope Trump can bring us together," which is a pretty standard sentiment after a very bitter and hard-fought political battle, right? That's a pretty standard thing for everyone to do. It's what you do, right? It's like, all right, we fought real hard, and we said some mean things to each other, but hey, let's just try to come together now and for the next 4 years, and we'll go back to fighting at that time. That's a normal thing to do. But of course, Mitch's career and livelihood was just torn apart because he dared deign to assume that Trump might actually try to be friendly. But here we have an example of this absolutely bug-eyed, hateful person you see here in this picture. I don't know who she is, but look at her. I mean, just look at her. And love trumps hate. Well, this is an interesting little thing. I wonder. There's a many things that we could talk about Trump. It's just a plethora of conversation points, right? But I want to talk about this one. Love trumps hate, and it's interesting to me because I've actually haven't seen a lot of hate out of Trump actually. I've seen certain presidents do have a certain tinge of hate to them. I know that Obama certainly had some hate for certain groups, obviously. But let me give you an example. These love Trump's hate. One of the things that I hear a lot is that he hates transgenders, he hates the homosexuals, he hates, whatever this binary polyamorous, whatever the hell they are, type of crap that's going on. And in the end, of course, most of us don't really care what you do in the bedroom. That's your business. But they do go on about him hating on them. And yet, I haven't seen any evidence of this at all, actually. Matter of fact, what I have seen is the fact that Donald Trump is, I think, the only presidential candidate I've ever seen on stage holding a rainbow flag. The only one I can think of. I've never seen Obama holding a rainbow flag. Anybody? Anybody? Right? Now I've seen a couple congressmen do it and stuff like that, and such. But a presidential candidate, this dude is not anti-gay at all. He's been very supportive. So, but why have we this in this political conspiracy land we live in these days? Because it's absolute manic. We all know. How did this happen? I mean, it's interesting to me because we know that it's been stated many times that these SJWs, these progressives, these identity politics people, whatever you want to call them, they lie all the time and they always double down. We know this is true, right? But there are things you can complain about Donald Trump. He's vain. He's a vainglorious. He's arrogant. He's always in the limelight. He's boastful. He's rough and vulgar. He's not the prettiest looking diplomatic president at all. There's things you can complain about this dude for sure. But this is not one of them. So why do they choose to complain about things that are a lie instead of complaining about the things that are undefensible because they're obviously true about the man? I don't understand the concept, particularly the fact that he's probably one of the biggest presidential supporters of the LGBTQ, whatever the hell it's gone up to now, of any president I've seen. So why that? Why are we talking about Trump's hate? Who is he hating exactly? We hear them talking about how he hates all Mexicans. Really? He says he loves Mexicans. Matter of fact, he says the Mexicans love him. right? Which seemingly is true, actually, oddly enough. But he calls all Mexicans animals. No, he doesn't. He said that the MS-13 are animals, and they are. They're absolute animals. And really, the solution for MS-13 is to take men with guns and to murder them and mow them down with guns and murder every last one of them. That's really what needs to do. Violence beget violence, I say. But he's completely right on that,
Mm,
and he's not talking about Mexicans or Latinos at all. Matter of fact, when you hear him talking about Latinos or talking to Latinos, he's very warm and loving. And this is the thing about the guy. We saw him yesterday. He's over here in Asia. He's trying to glad hand and do his business thing that he always does. And he was in South Korea and he was near the border, so he set up and he went over the talk. Now you could say, "Oh, that was set up." Maybe it was. Whatever. There's no American president that has ever stepped into North Korea. He did. He said, "Oh, it's useless. So what? It's a big show. He just stepped over a curb." Yeah, you're right. But he did it, and look at how he treats that little hateful, murderous creep that isn't Kim Jong Un. Right? He's a nasty, evil thing. He is. But Trump is the only one that understands, hey, all the guy really wants is a little bit of attention, to be a little bit of seen. Why don't I go over there, shake his hand, pat him on the back, treat him like my son, and maybe we can get some stuff done, and maybe we can kind of lessen the pain and suffering for the people who live in that country if we can make them more part of the world. And people are yelling and screaming how horribly it is. Is it, or is it actually humanitarian? Right now, don't misunderstand me. I didn't vote for Trump. I
it's
didn't vote
hu-
for anybody.
it's
But I'm just saying.
humanitarian if it's done from their own party.
But I know that. But I'm just saying that
Yeah.
my point is this
Mm.
comment that is a very constant thing with the people who oppose Trump. Love trumps hate. But the thing is I don't see hate coming out of the dude. Matter of fact, what I see is a lot of love. Now, is it political? Maybe. Although and I've grew up in New York area, dude. So I've known about Trump since the 80s. This is not a hateful dude. He's a hardcore businessman, yeah, but he's always about the love, dude. I mean, this is what gets him in trouble. He loves the women way too much, right? But I mean, this is for me what I want to talk about today. I don't get this.
Right.
For me, it's a conundrum, it's an enigma, because there are many things you could complain about Mr. Trump, but this isn't one of them. But it seems to be the one that they get the most foaming at the mouth about, right?
Well, because they have no sense of humor. So that's the point.
Well, that's true.
To talk about the M13, where if they are executed through due process and law, if they're on our side of the border, just to clarify that in your statement.
Oh no, you don't have to clarify me, dude. I say go friggin' medieval on their ass. That's what I say. I'm old school, dude. You put an
Hmm.
axe in my hand and let me go to work. That's me.
Right.
Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Ha!
Metaphorically speaking, yeah.
They're always see what they're doing. They've been
We're
kowtowed by Google
sure
and
that
the others. They're trying to restrict and bind my exuberance. How dare they?
Sir, right now, Dinale and I are ganging up on you to make sure that you don't get this channel destroyed.
All right,
Yeah.
fine. Metaphorical axes to the head. Metaphorical axes to the head. All right, but I thought fighting crime and bringing peace and happiness and prosperity to people was a good thing. I thought it was.
Well,
You do due diligence and you follow the law
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
let the court system handle it.
And
And
then
if the court system has capital punishment, then according to the laws, you will, if the judge sentences that person to death and
mhm.
do the capital punishment, they go from that.
All right, see the world
That's
we live in? I can't even make a statement. What happened to my freedom of speech, man? Even in Japan here, Article 21 allows them the freedom of speech.
mm,
And the interesting thing about the Japanese and their freedom of speech article, which of course is for
sir.
us, it's the
Let me
First
point
Amendment.
something out.
Hmm.
Let me point something out.
Hmm.
Is this a platform or is this a publisher?
Me?
Or
I'm definitely a platform.
where we no where we are, where were we talking
Oh,
at
we're
right
we're
now?
on a publisher who hides behind the rules of a platform. That's where we are. Yeah.
Right. So until that, that's clarified, more explicitly, let's try not to nuke the channel.
Yeah, all right,
Thank you,
fine.
sir.
Come Book Bob does have a few interesting points here. Let me
Hmm.
read his points. He says Trump isn't the person they wanted. I also would add a caveat to that, Bob. I think he was one of them, and this is what upset them the most. But anyway, he's not the person they wanted, and if they can't have what they want, no one can. That's pretty much it. I didn't vote for Trump. Didn't vote for Hillary either, but he won, so that's that. Trump did something that no president has ever done. He entered North Korea, something historic that could lead to ending the threat. Yes, but he's not their guy, so they attack it. It's maddening. Yes, and I
Right.
don't care for the guy, but he won, and he's there. So let's get it done instead of hamstringing ourselves over election conspiracy BS. And I'd also add to that we're embarrassing
Mhm.
ourselves around the world as well, but they don't care about that. They have no
We've
concerns
we've
about
been
what they
doing
look
that
like.
for several years, Chester.
Yeah, I know. But and I
So,
live outside the country, dude, so I can see it clear as day. And you have to understand, a lot of
mhm,
people mock America for their silliness, particularly the Asians, because Asians are one thing about Asians. I don't know if Western people truly understand the Asians. There's a lot of of these imagery and the ideas and conceptions of what the Asians are. But I can really put a single word to Asian to help you understand them: practical. That's what the Asians are. They're very practical people. It is what it is, and they don't fight against
well,
nature. They go with it.
the problem that's been happening lately is everything was going according to plan, and it didn't, and now they're all freaking out.
Yeah,
They
no, I
don't know what
understand
to
that.
do.
But I find it
I
interesting
go,
too since we're talking about political conspiracies. We're talking
mhm,
about Barack Obama because you have one side that says Trump's the worst president we've ever had, which obviously isn't even close to being true, and the other side saying that Obama's the best thing that ever happened in this country, which is obviously not true.
right.
Especially seeing as Barack Obama accomplished absolutely nothing in his 8 years, literally nothing.
Actually, he no, no, no. He accomplishes a lot, and we're feeling the ramifications about it.
No,
Why
no,
do you think
that yeah, you're. I'm not. I don't consider negative things to be an accomplishment, Denali.
no, there's positive and negative accomplishments? You're looking at the positive. I'm looking at all the negative that's been attributed.
Yes, but I'm the
And
one
that
holding the axe.
metaphorically speaking.
Yes, metaphorically speaking. Hey, Star Storyteller says he'd be down to talk. Why don't you go ahead and send a. Let me see here. The easiest way for you to do that, dude, is right down in the link. We have a link to my Twitter. Just send me a tweet right now, and I'll give you the link so you come on in, dude.
Okay.
I'll pay attention to that. But that's the main
Yeah.
thing I want to talk about. Of course,
Mhm.
this conversation can go anywhere.
Right.
You know,
I,
go ahead, Denelli.
all right. No, no. I was gonna say no. I mean, it can go anywhere. We could talk about the Democrats debate
Oh yeah,
where
go
they
ahead.
had one of the candidate. They had Andrew Yang. Not having his mics on, and it calls back again to 2016 where Trump is saying is this mic on and testing it. Where Yang didn't test it, but you can see videos where he's talking and those sounds coming. And then we had Trump, in those debates with Hillary, where he's like checking his mic and saying, "Is this working? Is this working?" Testing it because he
Oh,
knows how the game is played. So it kind of calls back to that as
oh, they're
well.
incredibly petty. This is true. Look what they
Yeah.
did to Bernie Sanders, and it's funny to me that Bernie didn't take and try to make that a big deal. He could have. I mean, there should have been people going to jail, but they didn't. But then again, there's a lot of them should be in jail. To be honest, why isn't Hillary in jail? Why wasn't there at least a hearing or something? It's quite obvious she's guilty, right? Even the Comey said she's guilty. He just didn't think it was big enough to bother with. Really, really, Mr. FBI man? Okay. uh, Trump probably didn't go to the eyes wide shut parties. That's interesting. He's not. I don't know that he's a part of Bilderberg. I would love if someone could check that for me real quick. And I don't know that he goes to Bohemian Grove. I'm not sure that I've ever seen him there. A lot of these people do go, and of course, actually, even the Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, has been to those sex parties over at Bohemian Grove. But yeah, I'm not sure about Trump. He likes the ladies, though. We know
Apparently,
this. Let me go check my
apparently,
Twitter, Denali. Could you kind of take over?
I, I sent it over.
Oh, you took care of it. Oh, rock
Yeah,
on. All right. Well, there you
yeah.
go.
You told me to take care, and I did.
You did.
Moving
Awesome.
on. Yeah.
See? I'm sure Bernie did
apparently,
get paid well just to let it go. You're right, Eric. I'm sure he did. But I mean, just
That
look.
that that, that was the talk. That was the talk where he said, "I'm going to step down for unity of the nation, and she's going to be an awesome candidate, and they
Mhm.
pay me, you know, a couple $1 million to keep my mouth shut."
Well, I mean, Bernie is the perfect example of a Marxist.
Well, the perfect answer was when, you know, if you get a,
Nick
you
W.
get,
That's good, dude. That's good. That was a good one. I'm gonna give you that one. All right, so we just got to wait for Star Storyteller to jump in here with us. But let me come back over here to and there he
yeah.
is. Hello, Star Story. How you doing, man?
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh hell,
Sorry, I'm turning off my camera. Thank you.
yeah. It actually, I'm sorry, lady, not man. I kind of just assumed. So well, there you go. Pope, you're not the only lady that comes around. There you go. But yeah, having the camera off
Yay.
actually is a little bit easier on the bandwidth. So okay, Star
Oh,
Storyteller,
cool.
we've seen you in here a few times and listening to us and interacting with us. So what do you think about today's conversation? And we're talking about the conspiracy theories that is politics.
How deep do you want to go?
As deep as you'd like. I mean,
Oh
it
boy.
is TFT. It's kind of that by putting that title on it, we allow ourselves to do whatever we want, right? That's kind of the point.
Um, have you guys heard the theory that Michelle Obama is actually a trans woman?
Oh yes, that one upsets my mother incredibly. Yeah, she loves
Ah,
Michelle Obama. I
hmm.
I have. What do you think
Interesting.
about that?
Well, I don't know. I saw that pictured. You know, I know weird. I know Alex is kind of weird, and sometimes he gets off on rabbit trails, but tends to be right about a lot of different stuff. So I'm kind of like, hmm. And what's also interesting is that if you look at Obama's own personal life, and this isn't like a right wing at all. This is a left wing person just getting a memoir about Obama. Was he actually was talking about? I guess he's bisexual. He was kind of exploring that, and he decided, you know what, I would rather kind of closet that part of myself, or else I wouldn't, because it was a conversation in a letter to a girlfriend at the time.
Hmm.
And he said, I'd rather closet that because I want to be able to move through politics. And
Sure.
it's not a big deal. But my thing is, like, if it's true, it's like, Michelle, come on. Come on, visible trans. It's great. I would
Yeah.
think it'd be a great idea.
Well, it's
I don't know.
that no one know. It's an interesting point because we know very clearly that Barack Obama is at a minimum bisexual. Some people would
Mhm.
call him simply homosexual, but I don't know that that matters. But he obviously is bisexual. I think the real problem is not that he's bisexual because I don't really care, but the fact that most of the people around him that would know that are dead mysteriously. Right? This is the
Especially
problem.
Joan. Like Joan.
Yeah.
She.
Yeah.
Do you remember that interview? By the way.
Well, yeah, I saw the Joan Rivers thing. I don't know if that's actually connected or not. It could be, but the point that you're making is more about Michelle than Obama. But if Obama is a bisexual, then all these pictures we've seen of Michelle Obama walking around with obviously some appendage between her legs flapping up. I mean, it's quite obvious that it maybe explains things a little bit. But here's a point that I'll put forward. Is she actually that, or is she one of these women that I've heard about? I don't know anything about it personally, but I've heard that there are certain demographic of ladies who wear fake penises, I guess would be the easiest way to put it. I don't know what you call it particularly, but they wear them because they feel it empowers them. Do you think it could simply be because obviously she's got something in her pants? We saw her on the Ellen Show. We've seen several situations from photos and videos. It's quite obvious she's got something in there. Do you think it could simply be her wearing some kind of apparatus that she feel empowers her? You think it could be that?
Oh, that. Now that's an angle I haven't heard very much about, but that would totally make sense within kind of the left. But I don't know. There's just something a little. It's not just that too. It's also the fact he kept calling her Michael
Yeah,
instead
it's true. It is
multiple
true.
times. It's
It
just a
is true.
bunch of little things that are like, I wonder what's up.
Well,
I wonder what is up.
and this, of course, that would bring into the conversation their children, and are they their children? This is why I made this suggestion I just did, because if you look
Mhm.
at one of the girls looks a lot like her mom, and the other girl looks
Mhm.
just like her dad, right? So it's
Mhm.
quite obvious that they are their children. I mean, some people try to say they're not and stuff, but it's obviously not true. I mean, the girl looks just like her dad. I mean, looks just like her dad, right? So,
Mm.
and Eric said
Could be
hermaphrodite,
serendipity too.
possibly, yeah. So I don't
But
know
you're
much
right. That
about
is
that.
a that's a idea though. That sounds like maybe an Occam's razor that might make it a little bit more. Well, if we really want to go and potentially die, we could talk about all the Clinton bodies.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. And
Yeah.
this is interesting. No, that's an interesting angle as well.
Yeah.
When we look at politicians throughout history, politicians and dead bodies around them are not an odd thing at all. It's quite standard, actually. It is interesting
Mhm.
that if you look historically, the bodies that are piled up seem to be much higher on the Democratic or liberal leftist side than they do on the conservative side, which is ironic because if you listen to a liberal, the conservatives are the big hateful warmongers, murdering type. And of course, we know this is not true. All wars and all these difficulties are started by liberals anyway. That's just the way they
We
are
just
because,
clean up the mess.
well, we do. We have to clean up the mess because a conservative is, conservative, and it's not profitable. It's not, well, it can be profitable, but it's not the conservative choice to jump right into a war. Liberals tend to be the reactionary type. They're the ones that tend to start all the trouble. And of course, I find it ironic that a lot of these politicians yelling and calling all of us Nazis these days and fascist. I see it every day, every single day, and it's like you do realize that the fascist fascism was created in Italy, and it is from Marxism. It is a left-leaning socialist government,
um, Let
and
me
they
see if
don't
I
seem to
remember
get
the
it.
quote exactly. Mussolini even said that he was a socialist as well. And what happened was he basically figured out a way to simplify it. So it was him, it's about the government taking over the economy. So no matter what, it basically is that. So they don't even have fascism. That's like, what is. Okay, here's a question.
Hmm.
Since we keep going on the left, my gut would be like, okay, what does the right do that's weird? Maybe mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction, was that one? I mean, what I can't think of it, and that's what bugs me a little bit.
Well, the right side, when we're talking politically, they are what you would call long-time corruption people. They
Mm,
tend to be a higher IQ group, and they understand that if they want to make more money from their corruption, because it's what they are, just like all the rest of them,
mhm,
they need
mhm,
us to have a certain amount of money so that we can be happy and spend our money so they can make more money. And this is why places like America and Britain and Europe and stuff like that, or even Asia, are very successful because you have this long-term corruption. The liberals are very much short-term corruption, and this
mm.
is why you have places like Mexico and Venezuela and many other places in
Chicago,
history, Chicago
Now California.
and California. This is why they fail
California.
so poorly. That's why they do so badly because they're short-term. I would argue low IQ corruption is what it really
I
comes down
don't
to.
know about that because they can be really thoughtful, especially when it comes to the institutions, because they talk about, especially if you look at what's happened within, they're very much into going where the power is. And they can do the slow march, is what they call it, or the soft walk. I remember something about a professor talking about how to change more effectively, and he was talking about how you needed to walk, not run towards reform. Because and in a way, there's truth, because, you know, if you do want to bring change, because there's things that, you know, societies do need to fix out, but you don't want to rush towards it or do something too fast.
Sure.
Like,
Well, of course, there are intelligent voices on all sides of an argument, but the
mm-hmm.
apparatus itself isn't. And especially these days, if we go back and look at the liberals in the past, or just for Americans, the Democrats, they have been far more conservative than they are now. Right now, of course, they're running headlong into Marxism. Some people are simply trying to make the delineation between socialism, communism, but I'd say they're passing socialism, going straight into communism, and I personally think. But let me come over here and catch up with a few of these messages here in the chat. Let me see. Bernie got paid well. Yeah, we already read that. Star Story is a woman. Yes, she is. Which is awesome. Oh, Chester, I just can't. Read Obama's book. Yeah, no, I have, dude. I know exactly what the situation is. Unranked Chevron says there was a guy who gave a full press conference talking about his sordid love affair with Obama, and then that guy got hit by a car. Yeah, no, dude. If you do any kind of even a cursory research, you'll find that pretty much everyone who grew up around Barack Obama is dead. You know. And Roger says something. A strap-on is what you're talking about. Yeah, I guess it is strapped on. Sure. Eric says hermaphrodite. Okay, thank you. Matt C says, "Lol, guys, look up childhood and young adult pictures of Michelle. She's a woman. Yeah, she is. I don't. I'm not arguing with that at all. That's why I said that. I don't. That's why I made that suggestion, because obviously she's got something in her pants, dude. Um, Bianca, who is I'm assuming a lady. That's a lady's name. It's probably a remote controlled. Oh, okay. Nick W says, "Where is Booster tonight?" Yeah, he'd be perfect for this conversation, wouldn't he? He knows all these words. I don't know. I don't know what these things are you guys are talking about, really. The Hollow Comic says, "Wasn't America House of Cards based on the Clintons?" I would have. It looked like that. And it's really too bad about Kevin Spacey, right? But yeah, it is what it is. They don't care about being right. They only care about power. True. Thundero is just putting marks up here, questioning it. Well, dude, come in here and say something about it then. Huh? You got the link. National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazis. Yes, we know, dude. Metzi says, "If truth is relative, then power is only reality." Cicero. Very nice, Nick. Eric says it's the Chicago way. Chicago, New York's Tammany Hall, too. Yeah, no, dude. Now, there's a good point, Nick. We got some smart people in here, man. No, I like it. We got some smart people in here. They know they make good references. But Chicago is an absolute nightmare of a place, dude. What a mess.
Right. And we have now the special prosecutor on the Smollett case now. So, you kind of mentioned a couple of days back, he had rubbed some of the power people in the wrong way to get that special counselor. And everybody who helped him was going to go down.
Yeah, that's in New York, I believe, right?
No, Chicago.
No, Chicago.
It is Chicago. Okay, now that's interesting, because Chicago is in a death grip of this socialistic ideology. He must have done. Somebody got pissed off. But a lot of times when you see like for instance Weinstein, where this whole thing, a lot of people kind of point to the Me Too movement kicking off from Weinstein. Actually, it's not. This is something that most people are not paying attention to and not realizing. It's not, the Weinstein thing is not what kicked off the Me Too movement. Actually, it was just he was just a casualty of it. This all comes out of, I can't remember her name offhand, but Woody Allen's wife, ex-wife. And she is bitter,
Mia
angry
Farrow?
lady. Yeah, Mia Farrow. Thank you. She is a bitter, angry lady because they adopted some Asian girl and he ended up marrying her. And she's been after him forever. She's saying the most horrible things. Of course, he's been exonerated of any any of the charges she's made, but she won't stop. She's a jilted woman, right? And I don't blame her for being angry, but
Oh,
she
heck no.
yeah, she can't let it go though. And this whole thing that came out of the Me Too was really about her trying to finally bring down Woody Allen. And ironically, Woody has not been touched at all by it. And Weinstein, of course, was the first casualty, and then it's gone from there. So this is actually what happened. It's Mia Farrow that started this whole thing, actually.
That's interesting. I haven't quite heard about that. From what I understand, someone had well, this was more from Owen Benjamin, and sometimes he can get a little weird. But he said something, and I thought it was interesting that it was actually the hashtag itself, Me Too, was actually created in a boardroom, especially with Casa. Casa, I think it's a Californian artist, something. Anyway, what ended up happening was they were trying to get people they didn't necessarily like. And again, maybe it was the crosshairs, or because Weinstein might have crossed the wrong people, because it's not uncommon for people in certain areas to cross them. I wouldn't be surprised though. Woody Allen made some really weird friends.
He probably has. Hollywood, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, I don't know, man. I really don't know. There's something kind of wrong about that, and he kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
why would you marry them? Why would you marry this? Well, he's funny and he's very charming, but there's something like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Woody Allen gives
Right.
everybody the heebie-jeebies. It's just kind of his natural way.
Exactly.
No, the Weinstein
but
thing. Oh, go ahead, Dinale. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say he didn't totally get off unscathed because part of the thing was it did affect his business deals with Amazon. He had a three-picture, $300 million deal with them, and because when the Me Too movement hit, they kind of pulled back and say, we're going to reevaluate our association, to the point he had to sue them because of that much
Sure.
money.
Sure. Well, I
And
mean, but
and
he's
so
been
far,
dealing with this for decades, dude. This is why we don't get many
right.
Woody Allen movies anymore, dude. He's been dealing with this for quite a while because he is
Yeah.
creepy.
Oh, well,
Right.
when you're done, I have one more thought.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. Really quick. So one thing that's also interesting too is Me Too is also a way for a lot of female creators to get rid of their more competition as well.
Oh yeah.
One thing that's actually relevant to kind of our Comicsgate kind of weirdness is, I don't know if you guys ever seen that animated series that was going to get published by Crunchyroll, or at least in Weeb. This is like a more Weeb world.
I did see. I watched
the High Spice Guardian.
High Guardian Spice. Yeah.
Clownfish.
But,
I think I watched that on with Geeky Sparkles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay! I love Geeky. Anyway.
Yeah, she's cool.
So a lot of them are using Me Too kind of as a way to kind of worm their way into the industry. And it's another one is Vic Mignogna, who's been the voice actor with. Basically,
Sure.
From what we can tell, we don't see any evidence of that. But apparently, he's not the only one. There's like a big list of people who are, if you are woke enough, you're on the chopping block. So it's been a very interesting little tool that has been poking and prodding.
Well,
although this makes watch out.
Now, Vic Mignogna is a little bit different of an example. Now, Vic is he's one of those guys. He's one of those soy boys that hangs around the ladies and acts like a nice little guy. He's going to sit there and hold their hand, and he's going to say all those kind of nice things. And in the end, he's just trying to hook up, right? And he did very successfully.
Well, he's an Italian stallion. What do you expect?
Yeah, sure. But he didn't do anything that the girls aren't doing. Did you see that recent video or at least the image that came out of the girl who's making the biggest noise against him was actually in a picture where she's standing over him, holding his head in a very sexual way. So it's like it's okay for her to do it, but he can't do it, right? But it's a pretty typical thing.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. But the Weinstein thing is a little bit different, I think, because all of this Me Too stuff, when they're talking about the casting couch and such like that. First of all, just because Hollywood is full of lechers and whores doesn't mean anything. We already know this, right? And you can't sit there and say he's coming from a position of power because you are the one that made the decision. Just because you're a whore, I mean, just own it. That's what you are, right? Now,
Yeah,
Weinstein is guilty of many of that as those, I don't know if it's guilty, they made the decision to do it themselves. But what he did do was he went after, he had an Italian model. Was in front of him, and he literally tried to assault her. And unlike the
I
rest of the
remember that.
whores, she actually went to the police, as you should,
Mhm.
because the other ones can sit there and whine these days that they hoard themselves out for their success and money, and now they got to complain about it. So what? They get their cake and eat it too. Oh, isn't that what everything is about these days with these progressives? It's all about eating the cake and getting the cake and eating it too. That is what they do.
Mhm.
That is everything about them. And how dare
Because
you
they're
get in the
fat.
way or whatever.
Which, and talking
but
about Harvey
oh,
Weinstein, we also have, just recently, for whatever reason, for spending too much money and having poor films not being successful, is Joel Silver being ousted or, resigning from Silver's Pictures recently.
Mm.
Yeah,
hold on a second. Regarding Weinstein, there is a interesting coincidence because the time the Me Too hit him, the Weinstein Company was up for sale, but he was a holdout.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a possibility too. See, it's like this tangled mess.
it
So
is.
it's always like one thing or another thing. It's never like purely one.
Well, I'm not gonna, of course, ask you how old you are, Claire, but one.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm 30.
Okay, well, there you go. And of course, any woman who is 30 or less, it has no trouble saying it. It's when you get over 30 that you have a problem. I'm married. I'm well aware of it. But here's the thing with older folk like myself. See, I've been around since the last time this happened, right? See, people think this is a new phenomenon. It's not. This happens all the
Oh.
time. It's like a cycle, right? And I think it's a little more in your face these days because of SNS or social media.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I don't think it's any less volatile, though. What was going on in the
Uh,
60s and 70s was extremely
okay.
violent, right?
Well, we're still talking about Me Too, right?
We are. But I'm talking
Okay.
about the
So,
historical significance of this type of attitude continually raising its head on the face of this planet, right?
okay, gotcha.
I mean, if you think about it, it's similar but not quite the same, Chester, because of the, like you said, the social media aspect. It has made it more aggressive
It has in a
Mhm.
way, yeah.
compared to what it was before. Because before, you can take a moment, a breather, to, you're enraged, but you can't communicate that immediately. So you're able to take that breather to cool down, look at it, and make some arguments, and actually be able to talk the
Well,
concerns.
Unless
And
it's
these,
AM radio, possibly. That would be one.
well,
right?
I get your point, Dinelli, but actually, I
Yeah,
think it was more violent back then than it is now. Actually,
Oh yeah,
right.
the laws are different too. Like you just look at someone wrong and they can scream rape. That's okay. That's a great exaggeration,
a
but
little bit, yeah.
No, it's
Uh,
not. It's not exaggeration these days, unfortunately.
now,
literally, you just look
Yeah,
at somebody and it's like, oh geez,
oh no,
oh
there is
geez, and
ridiculous. Yeah, Nick W says Chester remembers Warren G. Harding's administration. So, hey, now Warren G. was an interesting president, dude. Now, watch it.
yeah.
Anita
now I
Hill.
think
No,
Oh
you're
my
thinking.
goodness, Eric.
I think
Go.
you're thinking about Lyndon B. Johnson and Kennedy. They were total man whores.
Oh, they all are. But no, Nick is simply joking at me at how eternally ageless I am, meaning I'm really old. But no, I think anytime you have men in power, the one of the one of the unfortunate things about being human, and I say unfortunate, I guess it could be an argument the other way, but I think one of the unfortunate things about being human is the fact that sexuality, the sexual drive, the libido,
Mhm.
is a major aspect of life. Even though a lot of certain groups of people in the world try to hide that, the more serious Christians or Islam or what have you, but it is part of being the animal that we are, and therefore we put a lot of value on it. So when you have a man who has many sexual conquests and he's virile and with a high libido, they tend to find themselves in positions of authority, oddly enough. And therefore, when you get up to the level of a president or a prime minister or a king or what have you, they tend to be the most extreme version of it. And this is why, if you go back and look at every president we had, there's a lot of sexual inappropriate activity being suggested or simply accused, all the way back even to George Washington. Of course, George Washington was an absolute maniac, but I'm not going to get into that because people would say I'm a conspiracy, but it's not. Yeah, in a sense, July 4th is right around the corner. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think this is
you're.
a fair point.
I mean, we don't want you to go to the long-winded version of how George Washington started the French Indian War,
Well,
and
he did.
actually caused.
He did. And he stole a lot of the
So
land that was supposed to be given to the troops as a promise for fighting, etc., etc. I could do that. I could do it, Denali.
I know you could. I know.
Well, I would like to expand on the sexuality thing, and I think I have something that might be somewhat interesting. I
Mhm.
guess.
Mhm.
So before the sexual revolution, sex, especially around women, was a lot more like in our inner circle, and we didn't necessarily talk about it with everyone. So it was only like a close friend or within like our thing. So the sexual marketplace was a very different thing. It was about withholding as much as possible, very very much sexually. Or if you had, shall we say, indiscretions, you kept them to yourself. You did not tell people about it. You kept them on the DL, and actually, they probably would compete in that way.
Mhm.
Then what happened was the sexual revolution took place. Guys were down because they're like, yes, we'll all get laid. This will be
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
And that's not how it worked out.
No,
Instead,
it's not.
all the Chads got all the girls,
That's right.
and the guys got none. Everybody else basically got even less or none.
Well,
And
uh, let me give you a little bit of a anthropological statistic, if I might. I'll
oh
ask
yeah, go
it.
ahead.
I'll ask it in a form of a question. Everybody here, tell me what percentage of men throughout history, through genetic testing, were actually responsible for the majority of children born in the past, say, 3,000 years. What percentage of the male population do you think actually has produced the population that is walking around the planet right now? What would you say?
1 in 3.
1 in 3. Interesting. So 33%. All right. Anybody else?
1%.
1%? No. That's George. Take it seriously. Anybody?
I can't
Just
do math. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
no, that's all right. We got you. Don't worry about it. But
Yeah.
actually, the number is about 20%. So it's 2 in 10. So 20% of men throughout history are responsible for the birth of all babies. What does this
Hmm.
tell you? I mean, it tells you a lot about something, especially because this illusion that we live in the modern world is the fact that we've made a bargain or an agreement with each other that one man, one woman, monogamy,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
This is an agreement we've supposedly made. Now, you could say that the men made the agreement or the community made the agreement. It doesn't matter. But in the end, it shows you that this is nonsense. It's always about the Chads, and it always will be.
Mm.
And
Well, no,
unfortunately, I think
it's a
I'm a
trade.
Chad.
It's a trade actually. It's a trade between men want paternity, women want security, and that's how it works out. And
Sure.
also, women don't want the some women don't mind the sharing necessarily, but you don't want to share. Like, if a guy's rich, they can fudge it. It's okay. But most of the time, women want that security a little bit more. And I would say, so my long story short, what ended up happening was after the sexual revolution, you had all these women, now they're competing with each other in a way that they never had to. So it became about being beautiful and ultimately being useful. And that's where you get kind of the Mia Farrow, all these other like older, or what's her face?
Hillary Clinton?
Alyssa Milano.
Melissa Milano.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just going to
That's when
say
you
that.
can see it. That's what, basically, when you hit the wall.
Yeah, well, I
It's not
can't
a
have
pretty
sex with
sight.
Alyssa Milano, and I was planning on it too. It was on my damn
Oh
calendar.
no!
There,
Damn it!
there. Remember, what was her actress that just said, "I'm been single for 10 years, and I'm looking for somebody with the balls to step up."
Oh,
Uh,
there's
That would be Cerise Theron.
Yeah,
Charlize
Therese Theron.
Theron. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh!
She
No,
had the
she wasted her time, and now she's trying to turn the little boys she adopted into girls.
yep.
Yep. No, a
Ugh.
lot of them are doing that. It's quite disgusting. That's a whole nother connection.
Oh boy,
And
here we go.
well, this is the good
If
thing
you
about
really
the
wanted to
top.
go, we could
Well,
we
this
could
is a
talk
good.
about liberals and pedos. Then
Oh, well, sure. And
so
you could
just
also talk about
oh gosh,
trophy children and all that kind of stuff. But this is the good thing about this topic, the conspiracy that is politics. And I'm sure we'll have the conspiracy that is politics two, possibly even three eventually, because it is so open ended. There's so much to talk about. That's why I threw it out here today. Next week, I am planning on having Ben Henderson in here, and we're going to be specifically talking about ancient aliens, which is fun conversation too. And I'm going to try to have guests. And we talked about it a couple weeks ago. What do we want to do on the channel? What things we want to do? And I think it's a great idea. So we're going to continue that on. But having these very open-ended conversations as well allow everyone, just as you can see, we've been here an hour and 11 minutes, and the conversation has flowed unstopped, right? So that's a good thing. And of course, someone in here is the Howl Comics is mentioning Genghis Khan, and yes, we do realize that Genghis Khan is responsible for a huge percentage of Asia's children actually have some of his DNA in them.
yep.
Wow, right? But this
And some
is
of South Asia as well.
oh yeah, absolutely. But
Basically
this
Asia.
well,
Mhm.
this is the thing with the Mongols though, and their royalty. This is the thing with the Chinese in general. Their royalty, their nobles and stuff like that, they were expected to have a different woman in their bed every night. Every night. Now, for a young, and his name's not Genghis Khan, by the way. His name is Chinggis Khan. But
Hmm.
a young Chinggis was probably really happy with this arrangement. But I'm kind of thinking an old Chinggis was like, "Damn it." Because that sucks. Every day, a new lady in your bed. My goodness, that's rough. But he did it. He kept it up, and that's what they have. That's what they have to do. That is cultural. It's kind of like the Anna and the King, which is, of course is based on a true story actually, out of Siam, the King of Siam, and of course he brought in a governess to teach his children. We've all seen The King and I, of course. Yul Brynner, great movie. But there are some very interesting quotes in that book. I don't know if you read the book, but I think the movie probably must have been there too. But he very emphatically shows that the king is not above the law. And in that law, they do, because the Siamese are no different than any other Asian royalty. He's expected to have a very large harem, and in there's the girl, and one of his harem girls it has a love, and he knew all about it, and he was trying to secretly, quietly allow them to have a peaceful, happy life. But of course, Anna got in the way because she's got to stand up for them, she's got to help them, and against this horrible tyranny that is going on in this patriarchy. And in the end, they got executed. And she's all upset. Why? And he says, because the king is not above the law. So she screwed it up because he already knew what was going on. But it's a perfect example, not only of the
Much
silliness that's
like
going on
regular
today.
feminists.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's very apropos, especially seeing as how long ago this happened. I mean, we are talking about Siam, and of course, today it's called Thailand. That's how long ago that story is. So there's nothing new under the sun, as Solomon said. Yeah, interesting point, guys. Whew. Electra, no, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, thank you, Evan. Mongolian chicken. Actually, I prefer Mongolian beef personally. Have you guys ever been to a Mongolian barbecue? Those things are awesome.
Yeah,
Eh,
it's nice too, especially if you have like allergies. You can just pick what you want, or if you're you can have a little bit of Asian, but if you're trying to avoid certain ingredients, you can do that.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. But I love Mongolian barbecue. If you guys haven't checked it out, try to find one nearby and go check it out. It's a fun experience. It's kind of like churrasco. Well, it's not like that, but it's a similar, different experience, right? If you have never had Brazilian churrasco, it's a different way to go and eat. And just like the Chinese dim sum, it's different. It's not how we normally sit down at a table and eat. So it's a fun experience, I think.
Actually, Chester, I was curious, where in Asia were you in?
I'm in Japan currently. Yeah,
Oh, okay. What area?
I'm in Kyushu.
Kyushu. Okay. I was in Fusa for a little bit and in Okinawa, so
Oh, I see.
I was just
Uh,
curious.
yeah, no, Japan's a nice place. But I also lived in Taiwan, and I visited many places across Asia, including Thailand, Hong Kong, Peking, and or Beijing today, et cetera, et cetera. I've traveled all over. But Japan's a good place to live. I know that. The Japanese are very practical people, and they don't like the drama. Nice. And
Mm-mm.
Bullet says ice cream. I don't know why he said ice cream, but damn it, I love ice cream.
The one that I like is the bourbon flavor pecan.
Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
That might be good. I
Yeah.
like the mint chocolate chip is my favorite. I love mint chocolate
Mm.
chip. Um,
I'm a basic broad. I like chocolate. I try all the other ones. I'm like, no, it's just not as good as chocolate.
well, George likes the strawberry daiquiri, but I don't judge him for it though.
You can speak for me whenever you use the strawberry daiquiri in my name.
Okay, there you go.
You
Actually,
received the blessing.
right, he did. Right, that's right. Or I did. Yes. Diamond. These guys are throwing out words. I don't understand exactly what their meaning. I guess I'm not following. But then again, you guys know that I'm a cloistered boomer, so what do I know, right? These guys keep teaching
Well,
me all these new words that I don't know, right? I just used the word
Right.
cloistered, by the way. Goodness gracious. Whew.
But just falling back on that topic, I mean,
Mm,
there's just to put it in perspective of current time, there was a graph that was talked about by Tim Pool like a couple months ago
mhm.
where the average male are not having sex. Actually, males in their 30s, late 30s and 40s are having more sex. Even the older people are having more sex
Sure.
than the younger males of between 20 to 18 to 30. And then the younger females are having more sex, but the middle age from 31 to 40 are not having. So you see the decrease. So you see the competition that I think Claire mentioned just briefly before.
Yeah, no, it's
mhm.
weird, right? Even with the
Um,
demographic, my age group, which is the 50, around 50-ish, are averaging 2 to 3 times a week. But whereas the younger generation, it's not, it's like 2 to 3 times a year. So it's ridiculous numbers. Now, I know, of course, it comes back to this conversation of libido, and how
I
it affects our world, right?
I don't think it's so much of the libido in this case. I think it's so much of what, like how she mentioned, was financial security. When young women don't want a poor guy, so to speak.
No, of course
They
not.
want somebody who's secure, and most guys
Hmm.
currently, based on the recent statistics, are more secure later in life than current ones. So all
Sure.
the younger guys who are, either stuck with student debt or, are, still wet behind the ears, don't have that financial security for the younger ladies.
That,
Well,
that,
And
and
women
that
are picky.
that
They're way pickier about
Mm.
male attractiveness.
Of course. Yeah.
well, hold on a sec. That information is the standard BS. It's not to say that you're incorrect, Dinale, but that's the standard
No.
BS. The more insidious thing that's happening in North America is that the majority of the diet, in terms of cereal, drinks, and whatnot, have all been laced in some form or another with enough soy that is actually lowering the testosterone and sperm count for men, and that's been
Mhm.
going on for the last 20 years.
Well,
And
hello, Alex Jones.
this is a quantifiable fact.
I know it is,
Dude,
dude.
look at
It
junk
is.
food. It's all got soy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's one thing I'm happy living in Japan. I have no chemicals added at all because Japanese are absolutely pedantic about fresh food, but which is awesome in the end. But yeah, no, it is an interesting conversation of what's going on with it today and that kind of thinking, and I do think that's kind of adding to some of the stresses that's going on. But whatever. But it is
Also, it's
interesting.
porn.
Well, that's an interesting thing for me because I've talked about it a couple times here, but now me personally, I'm not hating on anybody. You do whatever makes you happy. I understand that. I don't want to upset anybody in that way. But me personally, I've never liked porn. Even when I was younger, we didn't have this kind of stuff. There was only the, like the Playboy magazines and stuff. But I never liked that because for me, it's like a tease, right? If I want a woman, I want her in my hands. I want her right here with me. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I never liked that. But these days, it's so invasive or pervasive, excuse me. It's
hmm
everywhere, and it's like
Well, actually, it
it
is.
can't
It
be
is
good for you.
invasive.
Well, it's
I mean,
both.
you have bots literally going into different places too, and it's kind of like the drug dealer that's pushing a drug, and then kind of like, oh hey, by the way, do this kind of dangle it. Um, but what I mean by that is that it kind of changes the way that you do it. There was a guy who did a whole thing, and he's not like a Christian or like some fundamentalist or whatever.
Mhm.
He's just a neuroscientist, and his wife, and they studied it. And what ends up happening is when you're used to, getting off on porn, you become less comfortable doing it in person, and then you can't
Interesting.
do it after a while, and it causes basically ED. And it's not because of whatever, it's a performance thing. And I'm the same way. I'm not necessarily like, ugh, but I'm like, but just be honest about it. That's all.
Well, and I don't need a study to tell me that. I'm obviously that's true. And there a couple it says pervasive. Uh-huh. But
That's amazing.
yeah. But the thing with that though is that it's not good for the girls either. And it's not
Mm-mm.
just that; it's this high level of amorous activity. It's not good for you, actually, your mental state to have multiple partners. I mean, a couple, two or three, trying to find
No.
your. Well, I mean, a couple are trying to find, who's going to be your person is fine, but you really don't want to do that. It's not good for your long-term mental health, actually.
And
Uh,
for women, the less is more. Like one, I think. Like you can, if you screw up a marriage, maybe no, just one. This whole business of, oh well, woman can have the same sex the same way. It's like, no, your body just freaks out. It doesn't like it. It's not good for you.
I have a question.
Just no. Go ahead.
I have a question. How is it we get a woman on here and we're constantly talking about sex every time? Denali,
There's been a study saying that women are more open to talk about sex than guys are.
this is true. I think it's very true.
Well,
Actually.
and to be fair though, I think I understand why it's kind of like you feel more comfortable because it's your own gender, and also you don't know who this person is, and you don't know if you ask a question and like, oh, is this going to offend someone? I totally understand that, and I just want to say, I'm pretty chill, so don't worry about it.
Well, obviously, you're taking the lead. We're simply following you. Matt C
Exactly.
says, "Is it true that Japanese women call soy men vegetarians? Actually, they call them kusataberu no hito, or kusataberu otoko, which simply means a grass eater." Yeah, Yeah, it is. It's funny because the Japan. You understand that the Asians in general laugh and mock the absolute idiocy that's going on in the West, guys. They think it's hilarious because it's just, what are you doing? Of course, men are men and women are women. What is this multi-gender thing? People can put on costumes, and that's fine. And most Asian cultures have no trouble with homosexuality or transgenderism at all. Actually, the Asians are some of the most open about that. They don't care what you do with that, but it doesn't have anything to do with whether you're male or female. So from the Asians' point of view, you're a bunch. All these people over here are a bunch of idiots. But anyway, Eric Hawkins says women are dirty. Dang, they talk about sex a lot more than men. Yes, they do. Women are far more foul mouthed too. But that's okay.
uh,
Mr. Yeah, well, it's true, Mr. Thundero, and it's true in every culture too, which is pretty interesting because you guys know I've traveled all over, and I can communicate in many languages, at least not necessarily completely proficiently, but efficiently enough, and it's true everywhere you go. Actually, women are certainly the more foul and filthy mouth than men, which you wouldn't expect that, but it is true. Mr. Thundero says he is laughing my ass off. I think that's what that means. Someone told me that. He says, "You filthy grass eater." Yeah, right.
well, they're trying
Diamonds.
to just increase, increase population there. It's a different story entirely.
Eric says, "Do you know what sexy stud is in Japanese, Chester?" Well, I don't know that they don't really have a word for that particularly. Um,
Hmm.
for the Japanese are more about if you deviate from the norm, which would be sexy stud, right? That would be the norm, right? If you deviate from the norm, they will have some kind of term or some kind of colloquialism applied to it. They don't tend to apply any kind of colloquial terms to what would be considered standard. They just don't do that. Their language isn't like that. But you also have to keep in mind that Japanese doesn't really have a lot of bad language in it. It's quite an interesting language in that way. Like the most foul, dirty, disgusting language on the planet is Chinese, with French coming up closely behind it. But where English is kind of sitting like in the high mid as far as the amount of dirty language we have. But the Japanese don't have much of that. It's quite interesting that a language is developed that has more of a focus on the innuendo than it does the actual, a lurid word, if
Well,
that
you
makes
didn't
sense.
want to get your head cut off by the local dynamo, so you learned to kind of out of the side of your mouth kind of conversation.
That's possible. Yeah. Conspiracy
Well,
that is political tonight on TFT. That's right, dude. And it's
yeah.
interesting because of all the shows we've had, even though where we've end up at this particular moment, an hour and 26 minutes in, we haven't got off topic. Isn't that awesome?
We haven't?
Yes. No.
No, we're still talking about the conspiracy that is politics. Everything we're talking about
Right.
is political. Eric Hawkins says, "No, you blew it, Chester. Chester is what is sexy stud in Japanese. Sheesh, ain't no fun if you don't get it. I got it, dude. I get it. Now anyway, I get it now."
You got it now.
Anyway,
Okay.
let's shift the conversation
Do it.
again though for to finish the show. It's because I'm not there to derail it. Thanks a lot, Thundero. Of course, you're welcome back anytime, dude. But let's go a different direction, Dinale. Take us another
All right.
political direction, please.
Well, let me see. We can talk about the recent politicalness of Google and the big
Sure.
tech companies monitoring us, using us. It's not really a conspiracy. It's kind of like a fact of how much we are now no longer people, but now we are the product itself.
Hmm.
Um, that is kind of running this not so secret economy because they need to know kind of anticipate what we want to keep us kind of docile and compliance, so we don't question things, and everything keeps on going smooth, like feeding us the grass, so to speak.
Yeah, but they're failing horribly at it, though.
There now are because the plan didn't go as expected.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are failing horribly because they want. This is why they're trying to censor everything and trying to shut everybody up and close them down. And they've been very successful. If we go back to Gamergate, for instance, they
Hmm.
had a lot of success in shutting down the Gamergaters, right? They did. But what happened on the back end of it was that even though you don't have as many people talking about Gamersgate, what you do have is a lot of people simply not buying the game. Right. So economically, they lost the argument, even though they might have won the control of the argument. And of course, this has brought us into where we are today. They've just kept doubling down, getting more and more extreme. But they're not winning the argument because all people are doing is simply not commenting. A perfect example is this of this is the 2016 campaign. Donald Trump won quite handedly in the at least in the electoral college when she was 96, 98% up to win that thing. And the reason why is because on all their exit polls and all the little polls they did around the country to try to set their understanding what was going to happen, simple fact of the matter is the majority of people just simply didn't answer the question, right?
Or lied.
Or lied, right? So this is what it's brought us to. They have won the conversation in the sense that they control the media. They shut us down. They block us out. They kick us out. They try to destroy our jobs. They try to destroy us in every way they can. They've won in this way, but they've lost on the back end because the people are not going to play ball with them. They're simply not.
Rather, they won the battle but lost the war, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. John Dillard says, "Who is this new person? I don't like changes. This is a conspiracy." Well, this is Star Storyteller. And as we always say, you guys are willing to come in here and sit down and have a chat with us. You are welcome. She did. And we've had a good conversation, I think. Have you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, I have. I'm hopefully I'm not talking over anybody.
No, you're not. And we do this enough that we know how to flow with it. So you're good. You're good. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And John Diller says, "I'm a sex machine." Where did this come from, John, and why? But anyway, but especially after that drawing you did on Fan Edition. You know, John, I sent that to John. I sent that to Edwin, by the way. I feel bad for him. I actually apologized. That's how bad I felt sending that damn pic to him. But hey, it is what it is. Hillel, New Hero Comics says, "I'm a vending machine." I don't understand what that means, Hillel, but I'm always happy to have you here. I am change. Oh, I get it. I get it. Okay, now I caught it. Yeah, no, this political environment where you can't say anything. YouTube, Google, of course, we had the Project Veritas videos came out as we've seen in the past, and of course they're all playing damage control on this right now, calling it conspiracy, calling it lie, calling it all kind of stuff. But we know from Project Veritas, they have proven it to us in the past that they are very competent, they're very accurate. Now they might well
And
be.
they've never lost a lawsuit, by the way.
No, they
Even though
haven't.
they have been sued, they've never lost, which means it's amazing. And by the way, didn't Nixon, for the whole Watergate, he was filmed without his consent, and that's amazing. And that's another thing I think is ridiculous.
Well,
They're
he was
just
recorded.
filming
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nixon is an interesting conversation. He was a hardcore, rough, vulgar man. He had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of success. People seem to forget the amount of accomplishments he had whilst he was president, and he wasn't any more wrong or guilty than, say, McCarthy in his communist hunt. There are communists in Hollywood. He wasn't wrong, and Nixon didn't really do anything particularly egregious.
Oh, don't get me started on McCarthy. McCarthy did nothing wrong,
No, well,
in my opinion.
and Nixon didn't do anything
Because
that any other president didn't do
Well,
either.
hold a sec. Nixon, the reason why they took Nixon out, it's not reported in history, but you can find it, is that he was going after the deep state and the pedophiles. McCarthy, he was actually going after the deep state. Uh,
Yeah.
they just came after him in a more unified and Hollywood-esque marketing in the
and
public.
one more thing too, Hollywood loves to put out McCarthy as, oh, this is the person who attacked us. No, it actually was a Democrat senator from California that was going after Hollywood as well. And surprisingly, even though Walt Disney kind of gets in a weird spot, and I know that, but he, strangely enough, was attacked by the communists too, which is pretty interesting. So you kind of wonder at that point,
Well,
who was who?
Well, it also comes into the McCarthy thing and the fact that the first thing I mentioned was about the Hollywood communist conspiracies, and of course he wasn't even the inception of that. A lot of people connect him to that, but actually it's not. It was another group of congressmen that did that, but it all gets thrown on top of him. What is OBS? OBS is what I'm using to stream to you, John. It is a software that allows us to do intros and outros and various other things, have a hangout where everyone can hear sound and all that kind of stuff. OBS is awesome. And I really, really wish YouTube would get on the ball and give us a similar type of technology in their own thing, especially seeing as how much money they have. But anyway, that's it.
They're never going to do it because they don't like small people.
Well, they don't like people with the wrong opinion anyway. But that
They don't.
is, you know,
They took the U out of YouTube.
they did. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, but we can find this in every situation. Anytime you see these small companies end up selling to a larger group, like YouTube to Google, we see this kind of stuff happening. It just is what it is. And of course, the Project Veritas thing, which I was mentioning, those videos show the bias of Google completely and without any kind of illusion. Now, this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't surprise me. Nothing that was said by those workers or those bosses over there at Google were shocking to me at all. Of course, they think that way. All I have to do is open my eyes to see that. But the fact that it has been put up by Project Veritas and has been made very, very plain to see. But of course, immediately though, YouTube blocked it. Google's blocking it, and of course, it's just proving the point, isn't it?
It's only safe on Ted Cruz's channel.
Oh, Ted Cruz is, I never was a huge Ted Cruz fan, but he's starting to grow on me because he is not backing up. He's staying very consistent. So yeah, Ted Cruz. I'm a more of a libertarian myself. I'm more Rand Paul and his papa. But
Yeah.
yeah, but Cruz is growing on me though.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do that, you gotta just hold it, and it's pretty interesting though. But definitely looking at people as commodity and looking at how your information is power. It is interesting, and how much that has to do with the fear of doxing. That's why I don't show my face online. But
Oh well, yeah.
that is more security.
Well, I'm in Japan, so F them. But Howl Comics says Vimeo blocked it too. Yeah, a lot of people are. It's all a conspiracy. They all work together. And it's funny, you guys are sitting here saying, Evan Von Skyver says, Dillard, you and me are going to outclass the pros together. Hashtag OBS hype. Sorry, that's an exclamation mark. But yeah, on that point, I do want to make a comment on that real quick. Actually, serious comment. We over here have been running this channel for how long now, Dinale?
Close to a year now. It'll be a year in September.
September. Okay, so
Mhm.
we've been running since September last year. And from the very beginning, of course, I'm not taking credit for it. You guys all know Pixel Trader came over and helped me set this channel up and do all that stuff. And I thank you very much, Pixel. But we've been running this, Streamlabs since day one, right? And of course, we had a little hops and bumps for the first month, and we got it working. But we've been using intros and outros and all the little perks that we can get from Streamlabs for all that time. And I don't understand how the bigger channels like Ethan or Mike or John, even something like John Malin or Edwin, I don't understand how they're not doing it too, because they're still using that simple little YouTube thing. They can't show videos, they can't do anything. They'll capture a screen and it's all blurry and ugly, and you can't see nothing. They can't play the audio through very easy. There's a couple little patches I think they figured out. You still got Ethan turning on a damn radio before so you can get music on the top, and it's like, dude, why are you not using OBS, man? I mean, come on, it's not that hard. I mean, Pixel taught it to me in less than a day, right? So I
Mm,
don't understand what they're doing. Especially since they have so many viewers. We're a little teeny channel, right? I mean, we usually sit in between 20 and 40 people, and we appreciate the hell out of it. But I mean, Ethan can have thousands on, and it's like it's the easiest thing. What are you doing, dude? I don't understand.
it's I think it adds to the charm to it. I do have a thought about this. Um, when something is a little more rough around the edges, or isn't like it's going through a radio and it has this really funky, it has this lo-fi kind of quality to it, and there's this charm that's kind of added to it. And most of the time, especially Edwin, because he runs his own business, he has other things he has to do.
So do
Forget it,
I.
well, you're smart. That's maybe, I don't know. I try to run OBS through my Surface 3, and I've just been having a pain to try to figure it out because I don't want it. I just want it to go from my computer screen and not my face,
Mhm.
and it is it's pain in the butt
It is a
trying to
little more
learn that.
difficult than the PC, true, true. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know Edwin works hard. Has his own construction company and such. But I don't think that he has a busier schedule than I do. I'm not saying I'm more busy, but I don't think it's different. But yet I have no problem doing this day to day, right? It's about the flow. It's about how you're
Mm,
controlling. Now today's show, because I'm not doing a lot of visuals, it's a lot easier. But controlling the visuals and all the flow and all the videos and all the things we do, it's just about having a routine. And it's not that big a deal once you get used to it. I mean, you have to pay attention, but it's not that big a deal. It's kind of the point I'm making. And I just don't understand. I see you guys, they're bums, they're lazy, or whatever. I don't know that that's true. I just and I understand what you're talking about the kind of quirky, the unprofessionalism adds a little veneer of interestingness to it, I suppose. But I don't know. I just think they could be doing so much more, particularly with someone like Ethan, right? I mean, he's made a
more
huge.
excellence.
Well, he's made a lot of money. He could take a little bit of that money and just get someone to help him, like say Pixel or some other person in the community, and he could have a clean show. His could be beautiful because he could put some money toward it. I don't have a lot of money. I mean, for me to set up this YouTube, I spent less than 300, maybe $400. I mean, that's it, right? But
Oh,
he could put a
I'm
few
trying to do it
thousand
on
on it. It
a
would be beautiful.
$0 budget.
Well, I'm just saying, I spent a little bit of money on video editing software and camera. Although I'm not using it right now, headphones and things like that. It was a little bit of an investment, but it's not that bad. But he could put several $1,000s and have this really clean presentation. I just don't understand it. You know. They're lazy, Chester. I've talked to them. All right. But then again, I kind of lazy into it too. I mean, once I got it set up and have it done, I don't want to. I try not to add too much extra work onto myself, but I don't know, whatever. I think it's weird because it would be cool if they did it. I'm not saying I'm hope wishing they would do it is my point because I'd love to see the cool stuff because imagine if Ethan said, okay, I'm using Streamlabs or OBS or, there's different other ones, even though Streamlabs is the best. And I need some help. You guys put some intros or outros together for me. Put some banners together for me, et cetera, et cetera. You know how many people would fall over themselves to throw that at him?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. I'm not criticizing Ethan Booster. I'm saying I would like him to do better. I think it would be really cool if his show had a really
He's got to
clean
raise the
cut.
bar.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, because I think it would be cool. And I know there's a ton of people help. You guys remember when Mike was doing his Lone Star campaign, the first one, and we had people coming up, giving him music for theme music and Lone Star. We had that whole thing, and I would call out
Yeah,
the
Chris, energetic.
Yeah, Christian energetics. Yeah, and I would do the call
Christ
out,
energetic.
and Edwin would do his thing. I mean, that was fun. That was community interaction, right? And that was just very raw and rough, but there it was, right? Just imagine if they were taking a bit of more time to make themselves a little more technically proficient, and then the community throwing into that as well. It would be really cool, dude.
Mhm.
You're constructive criticizing him. Yeah, well, I'm just making a suggestion.
Right.
Yeah. But
Also, well, it's better than doing drama, that's for sure. Anyway, let us
it
continue.
yeah, no, well, we're coming to the end actually. But it is a fair point, and I see you guys all have your opinions. It's a pain, it's tough, it's hard. I don't know, it's not that bad. But then again, if you guys knew my schedule, maybe you'd understand my perspective, I suppose. And Edwin does have fabulous hair. This is true. This is absolutely true. He's a
Very
beautiful
much
man.
so.
Beautiful man. You know who else is a beautiful man is Pixel. But he's so camera shy. He looks just like Ben Affleck, doesn't he? No, he does, dude. He looks just like Ben Affleck. Pixel is a beautiful man, but he's so camera
Okay,
shy he won't
scale
get.
of 1 to 10.
He looks just like Ben Affleck. Is Ben Affleck a handsome man? I mean,
He's
he's an idiot tool, but I mean, he's a handsome man, right?
yeah, I'm sorry. Usually when people are kind of like that, it's hard for me to always appreciate. But yeah, he's handsome. Also indoctrinated by the CIA, but that's more my personal tidbits.
I see. But but anyway, yes, Edwin does have fabulous hair. And actually, me personally, the only reason I don't use a camera over here is not because I don't want to show my face. It's because I don't have the bandwidth in this village I'm in. When I do get the
Mm,
fiber over the mountain, which should be in about a year and a half, I will turn my camera on happily. I'd rather have my camera on, to be honest with you, but I just can't. But Edwin is a beautiful man. We love Edwin for sure.
mm-hmm.
Matt C says, new poll: Edwin or Eric Weathers' hair for the win? Ooh, Eric has some pretty hair too.
Eric
Um,
Weathers. Okay, I'm blanking on his face. Or,
he's a pretty normal dude, just kind of a normal looking dude, but he does have a good set of hair. But
but
I'd say Edwin,
I
dude.
mean, projects. I'm trying to think. What
Eric
projects?
Weathers is the letterer extraordinaire of Comicsgate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen him, but
Hey, he's a
yeah,
great guy, great artist.
I've,
Yeah,
Yeah, we
I
love
know
Edwin
him
right
for
on.
sure.
by reputation.
Yeah, Eric's cool. But no, Edwin. Every time he brushes his hand through his hair and throws it back, it just makes all the hearts of Twitter. Of course, we agree.
Hmm.
Eh,
Or
I
piss
don't.
off the rest of us.
Hillel says, I don't have a pixel trader to help me. Well, dude, I'd happily pass on the information. Really, what all Pixel did with me was this. He said, you should use Streamlabs. You should get some video editing software, yada, yada. So I did, and then I studied it. It's not like Pixel sat down and held my hand. Now I did ask a quick few questions and he helped me out, but basically what he did was point me in the right direction, and I just took the Streamlabs here and basically the film editing or editing creating type of software that I got, and I just sat and studied it, man. That's all. It's not any more hard than that. Eric says, "Is Chester fawning over Pixel like Booster fawns over Ezra? What is the world coming to?" Hey, I'm just being honest, man. I'm fully secure in my own masculinity, sir. Thank you very much. I look like Ezra. I do apologize, Santa Raven. Gary Shipman says, "Hey, how you doing, Gary? It's nice to see you, man."
Yeah,
Gary. Everyone says Gary. Gary's on OBS as well. Actually, Gary was on OBS before I was. He
because
doesn't
he had his
use it.
channel on first.
It's true.
No, he's been using it. He's been using
Not
it.
really. He uses it so he can channel in a couple cameras, and it works just fine. I love Gary's show. Actually, I wish I could watch it more. But he could do a lot of intros and stuff, but he doesn't. But Gary has been on OBS before us for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
we do love the Gary. But anyway, we're definitely at the end of the show, guys. We appreciate you coming in. We appreciate Star Storyteller coming in and joining us. See, guys, it's painless. Do you feel pained or offended or in any way harmed by coming on the show?
Oh no, not at all.
Awesome.
In fact, it's quite cushy in here.
Nice and cushy. So you hear that, Dinale? I'm cushy. Isn't that good? I'm gonna tell my wife. I'm
Wait.
cushy, baby. Um, but yeah, no, we're happy to have you. We're happy to have any of you
Yes.
guys who want to come and talk to us. But I think today was a fun conversation. I knew that throwing up just the conspiracy that is politics would be an easy conversation because, my goodness, it's eternal, isn't it? And it's interesting too because we don't get a lot of dissenting views over here. Although I think, traditionally, politically in a traditional way, we're quite different. I know that Dinale is certainly a classical liberal, whereas I'm more of a conservative leaning libertarian, et cetera, et cetera. So we are quite diverse in the traditional way. But today that we have this extreme maniac leftist progressivism that is sitting way over in the Marxist arena, all the rest of us now are Nazis. So we all kind of sit in the same view.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
So.
And it's kind of hard. It's, like I talked to my mom today. She, we always check up on her, and she said, I was watching the debate. I can't vote for communists. Looking at the debate
Whoa.
yeah, that's what she said.
Who said that?
That was my mom. She was
Yeah,
listening to the debates, and she said, I can't vote for communists, listening to the Democratic debates.
yep,
And she's from Venezuela, and I'm from Venezuela, so she knows communists when it sees it. So,
sure, absolutely, dude.
okay.
And my mother has certainly
Mm-hmm.
always been a liberal Democrat as well. I can't really ask her right now. My
Mm-hmm.
mom is actually in the ICU, and I don't know how many days she has
Oh,
left actually. But
Mm-hmm.
so I
poor
couldn't actually
thing.
get her opinion. Well, it happens. She's older, and that's life. But my mother always is very. She hates the Trump. She can't stand the orange man. She can't take him. And I'm like, why? He's just a horrible human. Okay, but why? But anyway, I tend not to argue with my mother very much because, it's useless. But I'm sure we all have that opinion.
Well,
Well, it's just
Chester,
sad.
It's not bad. It's
Oh, go ahead.
fine. Oh, as far as my mom, yeah, well, it is what it is. But I'm just saying that I'm kind of curious what she would say right now because she's not a communist; she's just a liberal, right? And I understand why she doesn't like Trump. It's quite easy not to like him. He's kind of an annoying braggart. I mean, it is what it is. He's not very president-like. But my point is, I kind of wish I could ask her what she thinks right now because they have lost their damn mind. The Democrats, they've gone way too far. But who knows? Thanks, guys. Yeah, you're in our prayers. Thank you, Gary. But you never know. She might pull through, but I don't know, man. But anyway, thank you guys very much for joining us today, as usual. We appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you very much,
Hmm.
Star Storyteller, for coming on here with us. We've had a lot of fun just talking politics, and we don't get that opportunity very much. Of course, we appreciate all of you guys coming here in here with us day to day, supporting us and being part of the conversation. It's really cool, dude. And
Yeah.
yeah. I guess it's just bringing us to the point of thank you again, Star Storyteller, for joining us. And thank you, George. You've been very quiet, but always happy to have you here, George. And Denali, take us out, man.
Well, sure. Just before I do, I just have to read some of Eric's um, comments. Liberal Denali is a liberal. That's it. I'm done with this show. Left my ass off. It's Matt C. Oh man, very sorry, Chester.
Mm,
And Gary says you're in my prayers.
yeah.
Well,
Well, thank you.
you're
Mm.
definitely saying. Eric's continues as Denali's from Venezuela. I had an ex from Caracas. Well, I had an uncle there as well.
They're a little bit different.
Yeah, New Hero Comics. It's like arguing with your wife, doomed to lose.
Yep, exactly. Right. You can't
That's
argue with mom. She's
true.
always going to win the argument. It's true.
Yep, that's what sons learn easily. In the beginning, you never argue with mom. You just say yes, ma'am.
No, especially because
um,
they don't want to tick off dad. Right.
yeah. Um, then tomorrow is Comics News Today at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do a late show for the people at California. We know that you always complain about that, so it seems to be working at
Yeah.
9 p.m. So join us for that. I did pick up some juicy news to talk about, unlike yesterday. But remember, your perception is always shaped by your reality, so always make it a good one.
Namaste.
Mm-hmm.
I say.
All right, later, guys. Now, Star
Okay.
Storyteller, do keep in mind that I'm about to play an outro, so keep the noise down, please. All right, here we go.